Hello, welcome to this video. In this video, I'll be showing you how to host your Django project on Railway. So this is Railway, and this will be our Django project. Now, the Django project is using my boilerplates, so we can see it here. This is the boilerplates on my GitHub. It follows best practices on the structuring of your Django project. So use it and give me some feedback, and also start it if it helps you. Alright, let's get into the video. Our project is going to use PostgreSQL for the database, and this is the structure. Okay, so we're interested in the configuration to host it on Railway. Now, we have a few things to talk about. When we go to the config, we see the settings, and if you open the settings, if you're using a boilerplate, you're going to have the base.py that contains common configuration for all environments. We have the dev.py, which is for development, and now we want to create the prod.py for our production. So on the prod.py, we can see we have the environ that help us to get environment variable from this .env.prod. So we can see it here, and by default the default is set to false, and we have our secret key and our debug that comes from the .env.prod. So if we go to .env.prod, we can see I have my secret key here, and we are going to come back to this later, our database URL. So back to the prod.py, we have also the allowed host. For now we have star, but when we get the host from the Railway, we are going to replace it here, and we are going to do the same thing here to make sure that when we do a post request, it doesn't fail. Okay, so we have the white noise. White noise is going to help us to generate the static files. So I'm going to show you how to generate the static file. I have it already here, and going down, we have this is the configuration to make sure that when we run the command, the static files will be created in this particular directory. And we have this DJ database URL that help us to connect to our database. So this is a setting for production. And going down, we're going to talk about the proc file, the requirement, and the runtime with time. Okay, as time goes on, we're going to talk about that, but for now we want to make sure that on our Railway we start our PostgreSQL. So we are going to create our PostgreSQL on Railway, then we're going to connect it to our local version, the database on our local version, and we are going to use the local version to deploy or to migrate our database. Okay, so let's go on. So we can create a new project. Let's just make sure we are on our dashboard. So right now I'm in my dashboard, and I can click on this new to create a new project. Now we have different options, but I want to start with the database first. So I'm going to deploy a PostgreSQL database here. This might take some time. Okay, applying 21 changes. Deployment online. Required parameter. I guess everything is fine, right? Let's make sure. Okay, everything is fine, and our database is empty. So we make sure we are on our database, then we click on the settings. On the settings, we can see it's using the port 5432. So everything looks fine at this point. So we go to our variable. In our variable, we have these two database URL. The first one is the public, the second one is the private. So if you want to communicate to your database from an external source, that is, in this case, we are going to communicate through our local machine, we have to use the public URL. So I'm going to copy the public URL and move to my local version. In the .env.prod, I'm going to paste it there. Okay, so once I do that, then I can run my migration. Okay, so I have a make file here with some commands. So we can see for the migration, I'm going to run the prod migrate. So I'm going to open my terminal, and yeah, I have a virtual environment already activated. Okay, and my virtual environment has everything installed. So if we check before running it, we can see here I have my requirement, and we have the base.txt that contains packages for all environment. We have the packages for development here, and we have the packages for production. So on production, I'm referring back to my base so that it installs things like Django and so on and so forth. And back to production, we have the G-Unicorn we're going to use for our web server. We have the DJ database URL. We have the CyclePG binary, which is good for production. And we have our white noise. So we need to make sure all of these are installed in our virtual environment. So we create a virtual environment. We can create it with python-m vnv.vnv. And once we have that, we source it. Once we source it, we have to run make prod install. The command is found in the make file, so we can see it somewhere here. Prod installed. So it's gonna install everything. So I have everything installed already, so I'm not going to run it. And now we can run the migrate. So prod migrate. So since our database is connected to the online version, okay, we did that already here. The migration will take place on railway. Okay, the migration will take place on railway. So if I click on data, I should see already my tables being created. And okay, let's make sure everything is created. So remember, we're using a public database URL. Okay, that has been migrated already. So if we go back to our railway, we should be able to see all our tables. Okay, so now let's go back to our railway, to our local version. Sorry, we start with the runtime. So the runtime file indicates the Python version that we'll be using. So in this case, I'm using Python 3.11.6. And we need to have a requirement.txt at the level of the working directory, that is where we have the manage.py. So we have the requirement.txt because Railway can only understand if he sees it here, not in this directory here. But if he sees it on the working directory, then it's gonna recognize it. But you can see here I have it, but I'm referring back to the prod.txt that is found in the requirement folder. So the file is referring back to the prod.txt. Okay, we move to the proc file. The proc file uses the make. So we have the web colon, and we use the make migrate. So each time we deploy, we make sure the migration runs. So it is using the make command from the make file. And also we have the make command that runs the prod G-Unicorn. So let's take a look at the prod G-Unicorn. So if you see, the prod G-Unicorn uses this command. So we have G-Unicorn, we set up the environment to use a production environment, and we bind this port and host to make sure that our Django application can communicate easily with the Docker image that is going to be created by Railway. and here we run the script. Okay, so this script, we can see it in config. If we go to config, we go to prod, so we have to create this folder in config, then prod, then we have this command that run the WSGI app. So we can see config.wsgi.column application. So that's what it is. So once we have that, we just add this so that we can have the lock. In case there's any issue, we can have the lock. Okay, so with that in place, we have everything. And going back to our railway, we now need to create the Django application. So we have our database already. Let's create the Django application. So we come here, we make sure we click on this create button. So once we click on the create button, we want to connect to our GitHub repo. So our application should be connected to GitHub. Okay, so what I'm saying is that this application here on my local machine should be connected to GitHub. So once it's connected to GitHub, we can now connect it through this GitHub repo. So click on it, and if you don't see your repo in this list, then you have to click on config GitHub app, then follow the procedure to connect to your repository. But since I have it already here, I'm just going to select it here. So once I have it, I'm going to deploy so that it is created. Take some time. So I should have it somewhere. Okay, so this Postgres was blocking it. So I'm gonna just put it like this. I can click on it and see how far is the deployment is moving. Initializing. So I'm gonna pause it so that once this is done, I can resume the recording. Okay, so I'm back, but this is taking some time. So while that is building up, let's check a few settings. So we go to the settings. So make sure we are on our Django project, that is the repository, and we can see here our railway is connected to this repository through the main branch, meaning that if we push the main branch, it's going to deploy automatically. So we can change the branch here in case we want to work in a different branch. Here we have to, this is the networking, we have to generate a public network. So the domain name here, we can either generate a domain name or we can use a custom domain name. In case we bought the domain name somewhere else, we can add it here. But in this case, we don't have a custom domain name. We are going to generate it. So we click on the generate domain, and we need to specify the port. We know that Django works on the port 8000. So we're going to put 8000 there, and we generate it. Okay, so it has been generated. All right, so we move back to variable. On variable, if we check very well, we're going to see some of the secret keys or environment variables that has been created here. We want to add two environment variables here. So we can either add it from here or we can add it from the raw editor, but let's click on add here. So if you add here, we want to add the secret key. So let's go secret key. We'll make sure the spelling is right. So you can just copy the secret key that you have already in your application, or you create a new one depending on what you want. So I'm just gonna copy what I have already in my application and paste it here. And I click add. And I deploy. So I can deploy so that the change will take place, but I'm going to add another one. So here I want to connect, looking to connect a database. That's what I want to do. I want to connect a database. So I'm going to click on variable reference here, and I can select between the database public or this private. Since they are on the same network, the tool will work, okay, work effectively. But if you constantly access your Django project from your terminal, that is from your local machine, then this will not work effectively. So you have to use this one. So we are going to stick to this one so that we can easily connect to our Django project from our terminal or from our local machine. So let's click on the Django on the database public URL, and we are going to change this name. Remember, our configuration, our command, if we go to the setting prot setting.py at the end, this is what our Django project is looking at. It's looking at the database URL. So we have to make sure it has the same name. So here, once I've selected the database public URL, I'm just going to change this to the name that's recognized by my application. Then I'm going to add it, and I'm going to deploy. Hopefully it's not going to take much time, so I'm going to post it and wait for it to deploy. Okay, so everything is fine. We have everything has been deployed. So we want to go back to the settings and make sure the domain that we created, okay, from the public networking, we want to copy it. So copy this, and let's go back to our local version. So in our local version, we needed to add to the allowed host. So rather than putting star, we are going to remove the star and put the new host that was generated from our railway. So we do the same thing here. We uncomment this one and we add it here so that we have this as well. Okay, so once we have that, we can save and git add, git commit, and git push. So once you push, you will see the deployment will just take place. Okay, so it says no changes were recognized. Okay, no changes were recognized. So let me just do something here so that the changes will be recognized. Okay, so I'm gonna do something so that, okay, let me just do the change and add this. Okay, so once we have a successful push, okay, we go to our railway. We can see automatically our railway should start deploying because it is listening to our main branch. So we can see it start deploying automatically. So if you're working on many branches, you want to make sure the branch that you want to use for railway is connected to the settings here. You can select it from here. Okay. Okay, so everything has been deployed. So let's test our application. Let's try it. So we go here to the public network and click on it to see. Okay, so this looks good. Okay, looks good because we can click on this URL and go to the admin, and we should be able to see our admin. All right, so very quick, the static that I talk about, the static file, this is important for those who are building Django projects with the templates. Okay, you need to do this. But if you are using API, if you are building API, you don't need to do this. Okay, you don't need this. So if you need to do this, then there's a command here on the makefile called prot collect static that you can run. So once you run this command, you'll be able to collect all your static. So let's just do that. So if you say git make this, it will ask you if you want to overwrite. In case you have a file, a folder already, it will ask you if you want to overwrite. But yeah, I don't want to overwrite because I have it already, so I'm just gonna say no. But you should say yes in case you want to overwrite, or if you don't have the folder already, it's going to create a new one. Okay, so right now we have our application. Everything is up and running. Let's see how we can create a super user. So to create a super user, we need to make sure we are connected on our terminal. So we can be on any terminal, and we can use this link. This link shows us how to connect to the command line interface. So we need to first log in. Before logging in, you need to make sure that you install your railway. Okay, I think there's a command to install railway. I'm going to leave that command in the description. So once you install your railway, you have to log in. So there's also a command to log in. Once you log in, you want to link your projects. Okay, so you want to link your project. Let me see. Okay, so this is the command to install. So on Mac OS or Linux, you can use this. You can run this on your terminal to install it, or if you're using just Mac, you can use the homebrew. So for those who are using Linux, you can use this, run this on your terminal and install it. Once you install it, you need to log in. So in most cases, this login can have some issues with your browser. So in case you have some issues logging in like this, you can use this one. So this one is going to give you a token or a code, then you have to confirm it with your browser. So it is pretty straightforward. So just follow the instructions and you'll be able to log in. So once you're logged in, you want to connect to a specific project. Okay, so to connect to a specific project, you just say railway link. So once you run railway link, you're going to see the list of all your projects that you've created. So right now I'm using, what project are we using? So let me just take a look. We are using a project Sparkling Harmony. So mind you, that name can be changed at any time. So I'm going to connect to Sparkling Harmony. So make sure my arrow is there. I can use my arrow buttons to navigate. Make sure the indicator is on that project. I press enter. Now I can either connect to a PostgreSQL database or connect to my Django project. I want to connect to my Django project. I don't want to communicate with my PostgreSQL directly. So I connect to my Django project, and that's it. I'm connected. Okay. Now to run any command, you need to use this syntax, railway run, and you put your command there. Now to create our super user, we're going to say railway, or let me use the other terminal. I'm gonna say railway run python manage create super user. And since we're using different environment, I'm just gonna copy one of the production environment here, and I'm gonna paste it on my terminal and run it. So now it asks me the admin. I'm gonna just, the username, I'm gonna use admin. The email, I'm just gonna pass, gonna put my password, and that's it. Now if I go back to my browser here, where we just open it, I can just put my username and password, and that's it. I'm into my dashboard. Alright, so that's it about connecting your PostgreSQL to your Django project to Railway. Thank you very much. Please don't forget to take a look at my boilerplates and try it. Give me your feedback. If you encounter anything, you can write an issue, you can star, and you can also fork a project. Thank you very much, and see you in my next video. Bye bye.